All right, everybody, this is for those who struggled with their 6.2 quiz yesterday. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna walk through each of these problems. I'm gonna show you how to set them up, and then I'm requiring you to still solve these on your own because I received a lot of incomplete or blank quizzes yesterday, all right? So there's a few trains of thought that we need to remember first, okay? The first thing is that when we have a parallelogram, which instead of drawing it, I'm going to sketch one. Let's see what we got. Okay. When you have a parallelogram, opposite sides are congruent. And what does that mean? That means that if the left side is 5, then the right side must also be 5. If the top is 10, the bottom must also be 10. Next, and to keep it with the same train of thought, opposite angles are congruent. So if you have an angle in here that's 55 degrees, that's congruent to its opposite, which is the other side. Okay. Next is that consecutive angles equal 180 degrees. So we don't have this angle yet, but the one right next to it is 55. So it must be whatever 180 minus 55 is, which is 125 degrees. Because 125 plus 55 makes 180. Okay. Then you can go back to rule number 2, which is opposite angles are congruent. Well, opposite from my 125 would be over here. So this also must be 125 degrees. So these are your 3 rules that you really need to know. Opposite sides are congruent. Opposite angles are congruent. Consecutive angles add up to 180. Okay? Knowing that information, okay, you can fill in any parallelogram with its tick marks. You know that AB is congruent to CD. You know that BC is congruent to AD. You know that angle A is congruent to angle C, and that angle B is going to be congruent to angle D. Then you have to remember, to find angle B or to find angle D, you have to take 180 and minus 45 from it to get that answer. Okay, so try and fill this out as best as you can, knowing what I just explained here and here, okay? Your first 2 questions are identical. You know that AB is congruent to CD, that BC is congruent to AD. You know angle B is congruent to angle D, and angle A is the same as angle C, which would be 180 minus 115. Okay? Now, if you take a look at your next question here, if BE equals 14 and CE equals 12, well, that's the next part. You ready? If you have a parallelogram, then we know that the diagonals of that parallelogram bisect each other. Okay, bisect means to cut in half. So what does that mean? If we dignify that this tiny little piece from here to here is 5, then this tiny little piece is also 5. If we note that this piece is 12, then this piece on this side must also be 12. And what does that mean? That the entire length of this line is really 5 plus 5, which is 10. And the entire length of this line is 12 plus 12, which is 24. Okay? Use that train of thought right here. If BE is 14, ED must also be 14. If CE is 12, EA must also be 12. Okay, so why don't you write those answers in? Next, it says solve for the given variable x. Well, I have an angle at angle A, and we have an angle at angle C. And these are opposite angles. And we said before that opposite angles are congruent. So if you're going to solve this for x, you have to do 2x plus 15 equals 145. And then you must solve in here. This is a two-step equation. Get x by itself. X equals what? Okay, so use your two-step equations that we've been working on all year. Add or subtract, and then divide. Now, for your next example, you have angle A and angle B. Well, these are not opposite each other, so they're not equal to each other. But consecutive angles, right here, consecutive angles equal 180. So if I go back, we have our consecutive angles. We have 4x plus 12 plus 88 equals, and we just said they equal 180. You have like terms right here, 12 plus 88, which is really 100. So 4x plus 100 equals 180. Again, solve here. This is a two-step equation. X equals what? Okay. This time we have opposite sides, BA and CD. Well, opposite sides are congruent. Oops, sorry guys. So what does that mean? That 8x minus 5 equals 83. Solve. Get x by itself. Another two-step equation. All right, your last one here. This goes back to the diagonals. Bisect each other. Okay, so how are we going to set this equation up? 6x minus 4 equals 4x plus 40. Now, this is a multi-step, and I'm going to give you your first one. Subtract 4x on both sides. 6x minus 4x is 2x minus 4 equals 40. Again, you have a two-step equation here. Solve this, get x by itself. Okay, there is your help on your quiz. For those of you that have been struggling, please finish this up, as this is the last quiz and the last grade going in your grade book for the third marking period, which ends this Friday. Thanks for watching. Please submit your quizzes when